Good evening, everyone. My name is Mohammed Faridi, and I am the president of the New York City Bar Association. And it is a privilege to welcome you all to the association tonight. Welcome you all to one of our most cherished traditions, the presentation of the Thomas E. Dewey Medal to outstanding assistant district attorneys from across the New York City and to the city's special narcotics prosecutor. Many thanks to Tom, who is here, Tom Dewey, who's here tonight, and to his firm, Dewey Pegno and Kramarsky, for the continued support of this award. Thomas Dewey transformed prosecution in New York. I think that's an understatement. At a time when political favor too often eclipsed integrity, he insisted on a different model, one that was grounded in merit, one that was grounded in professionalism, and one that was grounded in a fierce devotion to the rule of law. Thomas Dewey believed that the prosecutor's purpose is not to secure victories at any cost, but to safeguard fairness and to speak honestly for the public interest. And that legacy matters deeply today. We are living through a period in our history in which prosecutorial independence is under real strain. The temptation to bend the criminal justice system towards partisan ends is no longer a theoretical possibility. It is visible, it is persistent, and it is corrosive. And Dewey's insistence that prosecution must rest on competence, on honesty, and on impartiality is not just historical memory, it is a call to vigilance. Tonight's honorees answer that call. They represent the very best of public service, professionals who exercise authority with judgment, professionals who exercise authority with restraint, professionals who exercise authority with integrity. They demonstrate, case by case, decision by decision, that principled prosecution remains one of the cornerstones of the public trust. There is one attribute, above all, that the honorees tonight, they all share, that I want to highlight. Moral courage. The courage to make hard decisions in the open. The courage to resist pressure, even when it comes wrapped in political rhetoric or public anger. The courage to remain faithful to the law when doing so is neither simple nor popular. The courage is the quiet engine of justice, and it is what keeps our institutions upright. To the families and to the colleagues who support and have supported our honorees, thank you. Only you fully see the long nights, the emotional weight, and the constant demand for precision and empathy in equal measure. Your steadfast support, your strength, your courage is also something that we honor tonight. So on behalf of the New York City Bar Association, thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate excellence, to celebrate independence, and the enduring promise of public service. And to our medal recipients, you carry forward a tradition worthy of Dewey's name, and we are proud to honor you here tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you all this evening, and thank you so much for joining us for the 2025 Dewey Medal ceremony. I'd like to start by thanking Mohammed, Brett, and all of our friends here at the City Bar for hosting us this evening and for all of their support for this event. We appreciate it very much. I'd also like to thank my colleagues on the Dewey Medal Committee, Dan Alonso, Tom Curran, Mike Miller, and Michael Yeager, for taking time to serve on the committee and for their invaluable input during the selection process. And I'd especially like to recognize all the public officials who are with us this evening, including, of course, our district attorneys and the special narcotics prosecutor. Thank you for joining us this evening and for your support for the Dewey Medal. And now to the medals, starting in the Bronx with Wanda Perez-Maldonado. Wanda currently serves as the chief of the investigations division in the Bronx DA's office, where she oversees the staff of approximately 100 people working on investigating and prosecuting a wide range of crimes, including gang activity, firearms, narcotics trafficking, and financial crimes. A few of the high-profile gang conspiracy cases Wanda has successfully prosecuted include the Slaughter, 9-Rack, and 1300 gangs. She also leads investigations and prosecutions of non-fatal shootings, as well as crimes committed by public servants, which was also a focus of her work in the Attorney General's office. Her office is also responsible for investigating and prosecuting crimes occurring in Rikers, where she has initiated a special sex crimes prosecution initiative. For her many years of outstanding public service, it's a great pleasure to present a Dewey Medal to Wanda Perez-Maldonado.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank the Dewey Medal Committee, New York City Bar Association for this award. I am honored, humbled, and very grateful to be a recipient of the 2025 Thomas E. Dewey Medal. District Attorney Clark, I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve as a member of your executive team, as chief of the investigations division, and the privilege of serving the 1.5 million people of Bronx County. You have often spoken about the privilege of doing the work. I am privileged to be part of your team, to be inspired and supported by you every day, to follow the evidence wherever it leads, and to do what is just. I am fortunate that I get to do this work in the Bronx and with you. As chief of the investigations division, my 29-year career has come full circle to the Bronx District Attorney's Office and to the investigations division. I learned about the investigations division weeks after joining the office in 1996, when I was told that Tom Leahy, the chief of the Rackets Bureau, wanted to speak with me. At that time, I had no idea who Tom was, had no idea what the Rackets Bureau did, and I was nervous to find out why I was being called to his office as a new ADA. And anybody who knows Tom will know that he shared very little information, but he asked a lot of questions. And one of the questions he asked me was, did I believe police officers were above the law? My answer was no. He asked, did I believe I could investigate police officers or correction officers? And I said yes. And I guess my responses were appropriate because soon after, I was asked to join the Rackets Bureau as their newest ADA. And I didn't know at the time, but public integrity cases would become my lifelong passion, would influence my views on fairness, justice, and police accountability, and would shape and guide my legal career. And for that, I will always be thankful to Tom Leahy and District Attorney Robert T. Johnson. This professional journey led me to the New York State Attorney General's office, where I had the privilege of working in many different practices in the office, including in the Public Integrity Bureau there, and later in 2015 in the Special Investigations and Prosecutions Unit formerly known as SIPU. And I worked at that time under the leadership of District Attorney Alvin Bragg, and later Jose Maldonado when I became chief of SIPU. In SIPU, we investigated throughout the state of New York deaths of unarmed civilians involving police officers. I want to thank both DA Bragg and Jose Maldonado for their guidance, patience, kindness, mentorship, and support. I learned so much from both of them in how they treated everyone with humility, dignity, and respect, which was evident when we met with families who lost their loved ones after these police encounters, and when we met community advocates seeking police accountability. Thank you. In 2016, District Attorney Clark created the Public Integrity Bureau at the Bronx DA's office, and I became the first chief of the bureau under the leadership of Gene Walsh and Stu Levy. A large part of our practice involved investigating police-involved shootings. These investigations and cases highlighted the challenges faced by police officers responding to fast-evolving situations, often with limited information, often responding to 911 calls of individuals experiencing mental health crises, where police officers had to make split-second decisions, and at times, these encounters led to the death and loss of life of a civilian. Investigating these cases was always challenging and difficult work, requiring fairness, objectivity, asking difficult questions, keeping an open mind, balancing the search for the truth with the family's pain, which required empathy, compassion, and sensitivity to the family's loss of a loved one. Personally, the most difficult, yet most important and rewarding part of this work for me was and continues to be the families, developing a relationship with them based on respect, honesty, and kindness, and being transparent with our investigative findings. Through this work, I've learned that another lifelong passion for me is advocating for the people of Bronx County. As chief of the Investigations Division since 2020, my vantage point has widened from public integrity matters to a wide range of crimes, but always centered on making the Bronx community safer. Whether it's stemming gang violence or the proliferation of drugs, or targeting financial crimes being committed on our most vulnerable members of the community, such as the elderly, in cases of deed theft, immigrant groups, and hardworking families in wage theft or rent scams, or reducing violence and crimes being committed at Rikers Island Correctional Facility, another important neighborhood and community in Bronx County. This meaningful work by the Investigations Division has been possible through the hard work, passion, and dedication of our talented prosecutors and professional staff members, the forensic accountants, investigators, who work diligently every day for the betterment of the Bronx. I want to thank all the members of the Investigations Division. I am inspired every day by your commitment to pursue justice with integrity. I'm honored to have you as part of my team. I could not lead or support the great work of the Investigations Division without the partnership and dedication of Denise Kojo, Deputy Chief of the Investigations Division. Thank you for your hard work, commitment, support, and most of all, your friendship. I also want to express my gratitude to my colleagues on the 9th floor. That's the executive floor. We're always referred to the 9th floor, for their teamwork and collaboration, for striving for a safer Bronx through fair justice. In conclusion, I want to thank my husband, Eddie, my son, Gabriel, and my daughter, Sophia, for their love, encouragement, and always being my greatest supporters. I love you. Thank you.
Next to Brooklyn and Dave and Dave Kelly. Dave has worked in the Brooklyn DA's office for 35 years. He began his career trying violent felony cases, handling fraud and public corruption matters, and arguing appeals. He then built Brooklyn's pioneering mental health court into a model that changed how New York City treats serious mental illness in the justice system. Under his leadership, the court paired treatment with clear accountability, earned the trust of victims and families, and delivered safer and more durable outcomes. The court and treatment alternatives for duly diagnosed program have been studied and adapted across the country, and Dave's mental health unit now manages higher volumes and more complex cases, mentors attorneys and staff, and models ethical prosecution. For his innovative work in the field of mental health law, we're delighted to award a Dewey Medal to Dave Kelly.
Thanks to the City Bar, thanks to Thomas Dewey and the DPK law firm for sponsoring this. Thanks also to Eric Gonzalez, who's not able to be here tonight, but I spoke to DA Gonzalez about 3 hours ago now, and I had a nice, warm conversation with him, and he congratulated me. Thanks to Chief ADA Nancy Hoppick, who I report to. I report to the Chief DA, which is just right below the DA, which is how important the DA believes that the mental health court is. Thanks also to my close colleague, Dave Kletzik. I think that Dave Kletzik and I are running a philosophers club over in the Brooklyn DA's office where we spend much time debating many fine points of the law. I'm thankful to my deputy, Carrie Rowe, who's here tonight, Julie DeGennaro, and my ADA in charge of 730 and insanity defense matters. We're a small unit. There's only 4 of us right now, so also our clerk, Sanaa Jason, is here tonight, and then Crystal Ramnarine is away on vacation. Thanks to all of my fellow bosses in the Brooklyn DA's office, who I consult with all the time. Thanks also to Judge Matt Demick, who's the administrative judge in Brooklyn, and who also runs the Brooklyn Mental Health Court. Thanks also to his team, Aaron McDermott and Shlomit Levy, who are here tonight, and also Thomas Bellinger. I'm not sure if Thomas made it. And I could go back farther than that, and also thank Ruth O'Sullivan, who's one of the older, one of the prior clinical directors. She's not that old. And then even prior to that, Lucille Jackson, who was the founding clinical director in MD1, where we built this thing up from scratch back starting in 2000, about 25 years ago. We started with the planning committee in Brooklyn, and by about 2002, I still remember Judge Demick called a secret meeting at a restaurant on Smith Street and said, look, we have to start doing this thing. We could plan forever, and we're never going to start. And we had to start putting cases on about a week later. We've been almost continuously running for 24 years in Brooklyn. It'll be 24 years in March of 2026. And I've been in charge of it that whole entire time. And Judge Demick has been the judge up on the bench the whole entire time. And it's been an important collaboration between the bench and also the defense bar in Brooklyn. The defense bar in Brooklyn deserves thanks because we can't really do it without them. There are strong bridges between the Legal Aid Society, Brooklyn Defender Services, many 18B attorneys in Brooklyn. And on that basis, I would like to thank my colleagues at the Legal Aid Society, Simone Berman Rossi, at BDS, Colleen King, Daniel Regis, Anthony Mayol, Joyce Kendrick, who was one of the founders there in the early days, Asia Sierra Millette, and also Pierre, who's here tonight from Brooklyn Defender Services. In Brooklyn, we speak to each other in the well of the court. We speak the same language. We know what we're doing. I want to just describe to you a case, and somebody's, of course, pinging me while I'm giving a speech. The remarkable thing in the mental health court, one of the things we've had visitors from as far away, I think, as Japan, because I remember meeting with them, many states in the United States, and also, I think, as far away as Australia. And one of the major things that we always discuss with them, and sometimes gets lost, is that the complaining witness has to approve of a case coming to the mental health court. We meet with the complaining witnesses, we make sure that they understand what we're doing, and we get buy-in from them with regard to whether or not we're going to go forward. They don't tell us what to do, but their opinion carries a very great deal of weight. So I wanted to describe one single case from the early days of the mental health court where we sort of branched out and took a risk with a case that seemed to be too violent for us to take in those initial days. And it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:55 in the morning, when a young woman was walking on the street, and she had her purse wrapped around her, and our defendant, who was a 21-year-old man, who was prodromal for schizophrenia. He was getting sick for the first time with schizophrenia. His family didn't know it. And he decided that he was too poor and he needed to go out and get some money. So he robbed that woman, dragging her along the sidewalk with the purse until the purse snapped, and she suffered injuries to her knees and to her elbows. Less than an hour later, the same defendant went to a bodega, saw a man counting money in the bodega, and punched him, breaking his glasses, and took the money from him. As he left the bodega, our police officers with the first victim was doing a canvass, and the victim was in the backseat of the car and said, that's the guy who just robbed me. So we had 2 robberies back to back. The defendant made a full confession to the police, and when defense counsel came to us to say, we want this defendant to come to the mental health court, in the early days we were saying, no, he's too violent, we just don't think we can take him. But defense counsel wore us down. It was one of the institutional defenders here in Brooklyn. And when I called up the assigned ADA, I said to him, we're thinking of taking this case to the mental health court. And he said, what do you mean? And this is back in about 2002, a different culture in the Brooklyn DA's office. He said to me, what do you mean? This is one of my best cases. I'm taking this case to trial. This is going to be one of my convictions. And I had to explain to him that we had a better idea. I made him go speak to the complaining witnesses, and amazingly, both complaining witnesses, when you explain to them what we were trying to do in the mental health court, they both agreed that that made more sense with regard to a disposition than sending him to state prison for 5 years. We resolved that case with a plea, and we worked with him for about 2 years, and the original promise was that he would get a misdemeanor, but we worked out a deal where if he stayed with us for an additional 6 months, we would dismiss the case. He has a very unique name. I don't want to say his name. But I Googled him this morning, and I also looked into our own case tracking system where I can see a sealed case, can't open it, but I can also see if there's been another arrest. And since the time he was arrested, he's not had any contact with the criminal justice system. And he was a young man at one of the colleges in Brooklyn studying art. And I found out just this morning that he's got this beautiful website where he's selling painted stickers and paintings, and he even has a self-portrait of himself when he looks to be about maybe 10 years old. So that's what we're doing in Brooklyn. You know, the DA told me today that he was giving me this award because he wanted others to know that we're trying to find a different path, particularly in the mental health court. We're trying to do what's right and what's just. And the remarkable story in the mental health court is how many times our victims say yes. So I thank you for this, and we're going to keep doing it in Brooklyn.
Next, we have Queens and Jonathan Selkowe. Jonathan has been with the Queens DA's office for more than 15 years, where he currently serves as Deputy Bureau Chief of the Homicide Division and Chief of the Vehicular Homicide Bureau. Jonathan has an extraordinarily distinguished record in the courtroom. Within the past year, he successfully prosecuted Shaquan Butler for the brutal murder of his 3-year-old son, Peter Zizopoulos for the fatal stabbing of FDNY EMS Lieutenant Allison Russo, and Travis Blake, who murdered 3 individuals, including his partner and her family. He was also the inaugural chief of the Vehicular Homicide Bureau, where he's been instrumental in establishing a team dedicated to investigating and prosecuting cases involving death or serious injury from vehicular crimes, and has lectured extensively on vehicular crime prosecutions and trial strategy. For his exceptional record of achievement as a prosecutor, we're pleased to award a Dewey Medal to Jonathan Selkowe.
Good evening, and thank you. I'd like to give my thanks to the president of the New York City Bar Association, my thanks to the Dewey Award Selection Committee for choosing me as one of, I know that there were 3 exceptional candidates that were submitted, and thank you for this honor. And thank you to the Dewey family as well for having this event, and for, it's not often that as prosecutors we are recognized for the work that we do, for the achievements that we have. A lot of the appreciation just comes from within, internally. And so it's nice to have events like this, and that the Dewey family every year puts that on is very much appreciated. Thank you also to District Attorney Melinda Katz for nominating me for this prestigious award. I was very surprised when I got the phone call that I was being nominated, and it's truly an honor not only to have been nominated, but to be a recipient. And I also want to give my congratulations to the other 2025 recipients. We've heard a couple of them speak so far, and they all have incredible records of achievement. And it's an honor to be standing up here, be on the same stage as all of you, given the distinguished careers that so many people in this room have had. I'm so fortunate to have been surrounded and continue to be surrounded my entire professional career by truly remarkable people. And that all started, the first day, just for my first interview for a position as an assistant district attorney. As an undergraduate, I studied at John Jay College. I loved forensic science. I was passionate about the field of criminal justice. And after John Jay College, I went to Brooklyn Law School. And there I took advantage of every opportunity that was afforded to me to explore the different options I could have to serve the public. I spent a year at the Eastern District, at the Federal Prosecutor's Office there. I spent a year at Corporation Counsel, a summer at the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. And it was the fall of 2008. I was a third-year law student. The economy that year was terrible. Many of you probably remember it. I knew I wanted to be a prosecutor, but I didn't know that that would ever happen. Many DA's offices were either not hiring or hiring very small classes, so I was casting a wide net, applying to every job and any job that was even possibly available to me. Private jobs, public jobs, and one of those jobs was with the Queens District Attorney's Office. And I was selected for an on-campus interview, and that's when on-campus interviews were actually on campus. Now we do them through Zoom. It's not quite the same, but back then they made the interviewees and the interviewers travel to the campus for the interview. And my interviewee was Chief Assistant Jen Nyberg. Now, at the time, Jen was not the chief assistant. She was a deputy bureau chief. She was an accomplished prosecutor. She was in charge of training. I had my interview with her, and at the time, I didn't think much of it because I had no connection to the borough of Queens. As I said, my internships were not in Queens. My jobs were not in Queens. I grew up in Brooklyn. I had to, before the interview, even Google who the district attorney of Queens was, in case I was asked that question. That's one of the things they always prep you on. Make sure you know who the district attorney is, and I made sure to be prepared on that. I assume I wouldn't be here if I didn't pass. Chief Nyberg, she was my first introduction to the Queens District Attorney's Office. And ultimately, I was offered a position at the DA's office in the fall class. I accepted the offer. I was one of a class of 10. And I got to know Chief Nyberg better. She, throughout that process, she was in charge of training at the time, so she trained me. Chief Nyberg then later became my deputy when I was assigned to the Major Crimes Bureau. And now, for the past 5-6 years, she has been the chief assistant. And in all of those roles throughout my career, Chief Nyberg, I have to thank you for giving me the blueprint of what it means to be a prosecutor. You taught me to do the job which, as you know, the judge said, requires humility. You taught me that. Kindness, compassion, all in service of the ultimate goal that all of us prosecutors here seek to fulfill, and that is doing justice. You know, some of my non-lawyer friends, and yes, we have non-lawyer friends too, us prosecutors, even though sometimes they seem few and far between, some of them are fascinated by what I do, and they ask me, you know, what do you like about being a prosecutor? You know, a lot of us have friends, they've changed jobs, they don't have job satisfaction, they complain about their work, you know, they do it just for the paycheck, and that's certainly not the situation I find myself in. And so they ask, what do you like about being a prosecutor? Why have you stayed doing the job for so long? And it's a fair question, because all of us who do this work know how stressful the job can be, the long hours that we have to put in, the personal sacrifices that each and every one of us make along with our families along the way. And not only that, but as a prosecutor, we are exposed to some of the most horrific aspects of humanity. The things that we see and deal with on a regular basis aren't things that really oftentimes are made for human minds or human eyes. And so, you know, what's good about the job? You know, despite all of that, I have always found the job to be immensely rewarding. And in my opinion, it's a job like no other. So in preparing my remarks for tonight, I was thinking about, well, why it is. What is it about being a prosecutor that I really like? And one of my colleagues who's here today described the job of a prosecutor as being a genie, but a genie with no master. And you know, in that, we have this phenomenal cosmic power, right? As the judge said, we have the power to choose to charge people with crimes, to take away their liberty, to have people arrested, and sometimes people go to jail for the rest of their life as a virtue of this exercise of power that we have. And we don't wield that power because we're advocating on behalf of a company, on behalf of a client, on behalf of a corporation, on behalf of the person who walked in our door. We wield that power in service of these abstract principles of justice, these abstract principles of fairness, to do not what you have the right to do as a prosecutor, but to do what the right thing is in the moment, right? As my colleague from Brooklyn, right, just talked about a case where the prosecutor could have sent someone to jail for a period of time, had the right to do that, but maybe that wasn't the right thing, right, the right outcome under those circumstances. And that's what, in my opinion, makes this job so amazing, that we don't just do what we have the right to do. We look and choose and make these decisions every day to try and figure out what the right thing is to do in a particular situation. And I am very privileged that I get to do that every single day in an office filled with extraordinary people who have taken the time to teach me and make me who I am today. You know, I'm up here today being recognized, but nothing that I have done in the pursuit of justice, none of my successes are mine alone. I've always had amazing guidance and support from career prosecutors who I've tried to emulate, Barry Weinrib, Rob Farino, Karen Rankin, who was a prior recipient of the Dewey Award, trained me when I was just a young felony trial assistant, Sean Clark, who's over there and is now my executive, but before that was my deputy chief and then bureau chief in major crimes, who has always been so generous with his time, has taught me the skills of preparedness. Sean always has a case for everything. You go into his office, and somehow, no matter how obscure the legal issue, he goes over to his file drawer, which is neatly organized by topic, I believe, and he pulls out a case. And in that, what he's taught me how to go into a courtroom and speak with authority, not out of arrogance, but because you've done your homework, you know the law, and you're prepared. and you're prepared to speak on the subject. Sean's taught me that, and I value that advice and that guidance. John Kaczynski, who's here as well, he's now my bureau chief, but long before that, before I was assigned to work for him in the Homicide Bureau, before the office ever even had a vehicular homicide unit, John, early in my career, selected me to prosecute a number of vehicular homicide cases, which were significant. They were challenging. I learned a great deal from those cases and had to deal with these grieving families for whom justice can never really be delivered. Right? These families who really what they want is not to see somebody go to jail. They want their loved one to come home. And you can never deliver that. But to learn how to deal with those families, be there as their support. I learned that from working on those cases. I learned that from John, who was always calm, cool, and collected in any scenario. Everyone who works for him, he adores him, and I strive to emulate that as a manager. You know, the Queens DA's office has been a wonderful place to work, and not only because of management, but also because of my colleagues. I have an amazing paralegal, Lauren Bozier, who goes above and beyond. And success at this job has always been, for me, a team effort, and being surrounded by such an amazing team inside the office as well as outside the office are things I'm truly thankful for. And I have to say outside the office as well, because that team includes my wife, who's sitting here with me, Rebecca. We met when we were students at Brooklyn Law School, and not only is she understanding of the long hours, the stress, being called out in the middle of the night, being called out on her birthday right before we're supposed to go to dinner. But she's been a true partner with me along this journey, making everything I do better. You know, in addition to her day job, Rebecca is a performer. She's a singer, and she knows how to make an impact on an audience. And with that perspective, she helps me work on my opening statements, my oral arguments, my summations. She'll talk through cases with me, test my positions, challenge my points of view, and oftentimes get me to think about things in a completely different way. And she deserves a great deal of thanks and has a great deal of appreciation, certainly from me, in receiving this distinction tonight. And, you know, it was about 5 going on 6 years now that DA Katz was elected and began running the Queens DA's office. And over the years, getting to know DA Katz, one of the things about her in particular has become crystal clear, and that is that the DA grew up in Queens, and she absolutely loves the borough that we serve. She cares deeply about its people. She cares deeply about public safety and the public safety of everyone who lives there or even passes through. And during that time that she's been the DA, DA Katz has created the office's first ever vehicular homicide unit, and she's chosen me to lead that. And in promoting me to the Homicide Bureau and selecting me for a leadership position in that bureau, it's incredibly meaningful to me, because I know how much public safety and the borough means to the district attorney. Being entrusted with that responsibility means that much more. And so thank you, DA Katz, not just for nominating me for this award, but over the 5-6 years we've worked together, and hopefully the many more after. Thank you for the confidence you've shown in me. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you all. Thank everyone here who, whether you're here to support me, whether you're here to support another recipient, it means a lot to see so many people here. I mean, there's standing room only in the back there, and to see so many people supporting the work that we do is really touching. And so God bless you all, and let's all keep up the good fight.
And now to Staten Island and Victoria Levin. Victoria is a 17-year veteran of the Richmond County DA's office, where she currently serves as Executive ADA for Special Victims and Pathways to Justice. She started her career in the office in the Criminal Courts Bureau and then moved to the Special Victims Bureau, where she handled cases involving domestic violence, sex crimes, and elder abuse. In 2020, she was named Bureau Chief of the Domestic Violence Bureau, where in addition to overseeing a large team of misdemeanor and felony assistants, she oversaw initiatives like the Early Victim Engagement Program, which is designed to create early and meaningful relationships with victims of domestic violence. In her present role, she directly oversees a number of bureaus, including domestic violence and special victims, while continuing to carry her own caseload. For her outstanding work seeking justice for society's most vulnerable, I'm delighted to present a Dewey Medal to Victoria Levin.
Wow, this is incredible. Good evening, everyone. It's amazing to be up here tonight. In preparing for this really special evening, I asked a number of my colleagues, fellow members of the Richmond County DA's leadership who've stood on the stage before me to accept this honor for some of their tips and advice. Adam Silberlight's advice, 8 minutes is your sweet spot. We're Staten Island, you'll probably go last, which this was a surprise, guys, so thank you. Tuesday told me to keep your damn speech short. Michelle Malfetta told me this is not your war and peace moment. There's a theme that emerges here. Tom Litsky, 2 years ago's awardee, gave me 7 discrete tips in no particular order, but one of them was to wear comfortable shoes. Tom, I disregarded that. All of these people give wonderful advice. They give advice about tonight, about logistics, about life, and about the law. And I feel incredibly lucky to work deeply embedded within this ethos of collaboration at the Richmond County DA's office. The other piece of advice, Darren Albanese told me to thank the Academy. And so by thanking the Academy, I mean the RCDA executive team, which I feel privileged to have joined in this past year. I learned things from all of them every single day. Lisa Davis is the only person you should try your first homicide with. Mark Palladino is our muscle, our power, and our conviction. Adam Silberlight, our wonderkind with a heart of gold. Darren, the consummate statesman, level head, and comic relief. Yolanda Rudick is our executive consultant now, and she was my first Special Victims Bureau chief who helped me to hone my passion for victim work. Tom Ridges is a walking encyclopedia of law enforcement knowledge and 24-hour-a-day support. A couple extra words that I need to say about a few people who've helped me get to the stage tonight. Tuesday Muller-Mondi was my dear supervisor and very dear friend of 17 years who retired this summer at the very young age of 29 or so. And she has left me this legacy of work and these huge shoes to fill. So Tuesday, thank you for this blessing, and I'm sorry for the days that I curse you. Tim Kohler, our former chief assistant, who couldn't be here tonight because in retirement, he is currently in Albany training newly elected district attorneys on ethics. He is the only man for that job as far as I'm concerned. For those who I work with, who know Tim and know me and were at his retirement party, you all know how I feel about him. I cried my way for 4 hours through his retirement party. If you weren't at his party, you may have attended the last CLE that he taught in the office, which I also cried through. He knows the esteem in which I hold him. For him, he has combined roles of prosecutorial mentor, ethical sage, and adopted uncle. Thank you to our current chief assistant, Ashley Owens, who had very big shoes to fill when Tim retired, and she truly made her own mold of what it is to be a chief assistant. She is a master manager. She has one of the most retentive memories of anyone I have ever encountered, and an uncanny ability to juggle matters of complexity and depth with such ease that I am constantly in awe. She has championed me, my passions, and I am so grateful for her support. To the head of our academy, our district attorney, Michael McMahon, DA McMahon is really involved in every aspect of the work that we do. His door is open. He is the most collaborative leader. He is hungry to support justice in every way, and he is a true trailblazer in this community. And I am so lucky every day, boss, to work for you. Thank you for giving me a seat at the big kids table. That's the executive team, by the way. And thank you for all of your support in this incredible career and for nominating me for this award tonight. Thank you, Mr. Dewey, to this committee. This event has been something that has inspired me for years. To see prosecutors be recognized for this hard and often thankless work that we do, and for it to be celebrated with peers, with people you admire, is absolutely incredible. It is an honor to be up here tonight and an honor to share the stage with tonight's awardees. I am inspired by the work that all of you do, and I couldn't be more proud to share this stage with you. I want to thank the people who run the bureaus who I supervise every day, specifically the supervisors, Rhiannon, Melissa, Nicole, Jay, Tony, and Amir Courtney, who are here tonight, and the people in them, a lot of them who are here tonight, legal and non-legal staff alike. You make it easy for me to do this job as colleagues and as friends. I am proud every day at your commitment, dedication to justice, and your incredible kindness as human beings. I've touched a little bit on how collaborative this work is, and it's true. In my almost 17 years doing this, I have met some of my dearest and closest friends, some of whom from my oldest friends, Guy Tardanico to Brooke, who are here tonight. You start in the trenches with all of your colleagues, and these people become your family. It is amazing, and it's amazing to see so many people from my office here. One of my dearest friends is Ann Thompson, Judge Ann Thompson. I saw her somewhere, now I don't see her. She was one of my best friends for many years in the Special Victims Bureau, and she has taught me a million things about what it means to do this job with integrity, what it means to fight for victims, what it means to figure things out. And through our time together in the office and her time now on the bench, I am incredibly grateful for her friendship. I'm really grateful that some of my family and closest friends are here tonight. Specifically, my mom flew up from Florida to be here. She's a very unreliable narrator, but if any of you ask her tonight, she will tell you that she's not at all surprised that I'm here because she thinks I'm the best. So her blind and unwavering support, whether occasionally delusional or not, has really pushed me here to this stage and through many milestones. And she gave me another gift in my life that I don't often mention, but I think it bears comment here tonight. We lost my dad when I was very, very young. And one thing my mom did was she did a really incredible job of keeping him alive for me so that I truly knew him through my whole life. And I have been able to have him as a moral and intellectual North Star for the entirety of my life. So Mom, thank you. I'm thankful to have a partner in life, Mark, who was so excited when I told him that I was receiving this honor tonight that I can't actually say out loud his expletive-laced response of uncontainable excitement. And I am so lucky to have someone in my life who shows that level of pride, support, and love every single day. So how did I end up here? As a kid, my mom will tell you that while I was a social butterfly, I had a lot of friends, I was also a kid who was always concerned about the kid who was left out, the one who was shy, the one who was different, the one who got bullied. In high school, a little bit nerdy, still had friends, I swear, I did. I wrote notes constantly in the margins of my pocket constitution. I carried it around with me. I thought it was the most beautiful document I had ever written. And I think if all of you do the math, you will agree that when you combine those two kids, you wind up with a career DV and special victims prosecutor. When you start this job, everyone tells you that it's about doing the right thing, right? That's prosecution 101. You've heard it here tonight. And the longer you do this job, I think it's actually about three things, in my opinion. And first, it is never really knowing what the right thing is, but still trying to do it anyways. Second, truly understanding that the law is not static, and thus, as it evolves, you must evolve too. So you learn new things every day. And third, it's about humanity. This job is about the moment you're about to get a verdict and your heart is pounding out of your chest, not because you believe in your case, you do, but because the worst possible thing that could happen is letting the victim or the victim's family down who have put so much faith in you. This job is about the moment when you're doing a forensic interview of a child and the child sits on the floor and starts taking your shoes off under the table, and you think it's really weird, and they don't prepare you for that in law school, but you're pretty sure that you're about to get a disclosure of abuse, so you just keep it moving and keep going. For me, this job has been so many times about blurring the lines of what is really professional and what's just the right thing to do. And my tip here for the young ADAs in the room, the more you let the human connection seep in, the better you will be at this job. Your humanity, your ability to recognize the humanity in your victim, your defendant, and their families, the more you will truly understand your case. Never forget that your Wednesday may be the worst day of your victim's life, the day that their world is being turned upside down. You are privileged to get to guide them through those worst days and make the path just a little bit smoother. Being the shepherd in that process is a sacred thing. The longer I've done this job, the more that I've learned that the right thing is the opposite of a black and white binary. From my time in special victims to ushering in Raise the Age and later the Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act, being in a position to contemplate the intent and the purpose of the law and balance that with the sometimes dangerous and unfair ramifications of how they manifest in real life, to handling homicides with the mentally ill, the immigrant community, criminalized survivors, abusive victims, people with dementia. I've had to call Dave Kelly, he's amazing, by the way. And in a couple lucky instances, a combination of a few of those different things, and truly struggling with what justice actually looks like in those moments. It's not easy, but what an honor it is to get to be the person racking your brain and building your expertise to figure out what the hell justice looks like in those situations. So my tip here for the young ADAs in the room, don't assume that you know what's right. Ask yourself again and again if it looks right, feels right, is right, and what the other permutations of right in that situation could be. Talk to your colleagues. Again, this career surrounds you with questions of morality, but it also surrounds you with bright, dedicated, inquisitive, collaborative colleagues who like to riff on the topic of justice. Lean into that. Your friends at law firms are not doing that, and it is half of what makes this job so endlessly fascinating and rewarding. When I was a junior assistant, I could probably count on one hand the number of times that I opened Lexis and did case law research or called people from other counties to get advice on hard topics. And the more senior that I've gotten, the more I've realized all the things that I don't know, and the more research that I do, and the more that I look up and learn every single day. The law, this field, this job is a constant evolution. What a gift to simultaneously keep your mind moving. Stay on top of it. Don't think that you've mastered it. If you think it, you haven't. I guarantee you haven't. Go learn something new. Let it humble you. One thing that Tim Kohler told me in preparation for tonight is that this event has always been a little bit of professional oxygen. Most days I remember well why I do this work, but as you all know in this room who do it, the days can get long, they can wear you down, and you see a lot of really, really hard things. And getting to sit in a room and hearing from talented colleagues who dedicate their life to this work is a refresh. I hope some of you are sitting here now feeling pride in the work that you do and getting ready to fight another day. In preparation for tonight, I went through a folder of some mementos that I had in my office, and I had a vague recollection of this sealed letter that I was told to write to myself at a training. I didn't remember exactly what it was or where it was from, but I opened it last week to see. It was Note to Self, to Future Victoria from Past Victoria, written at a DV Survivors client-centered training that I did at Fordham. It was dated November 4th of 2013, so about 12 years ago, and it was mailed from the training. I never opened it, but it was supposed to, I think, talk a little bit about remembering why we do this job. So I wrote in part, remember that each person you meet isn't just a victim. They are a mother, child, sister, employee, immigrant, or some other combination of identities. Even though the days are busy, try to listen to who they truly are and what their unique identity and experience is. Even if you can't always do what they want or help in their ideal way or bring their loved one back, remember to try to show them patience, compassion, and respect for their story. It will inevitably be different than your own. When you stress over researching the law and toil over writing time-consuming motions, remember that they exist, the law exists, this job exists to better humanity, even if only in some small way. And if you do your job properly, you can too. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much.
Next, we have Special Narcotics and Sunmoo and Hyo. Anne began her career as a prosecutor in the Richmond County DA's office, where she worked on a number of narcotics prosecutions and helped get that office's narcotics bureau off the ground. In 2017, she transferred to Special Narcotics, where she started in the trial division. In 2021, she was promoted to be chief of the Prescription Drug Investigation Unit, where she oversees ADAs and analysts in examining complex prescription and financial data, and where her deep knowledge of technology has been instrumental in running successful investigations in a world where paper prescriptions are gone and IP addresses and two-factor authentication accounts have to be reviewed for evidence of illegal prescriptions. Anne is also the co-chief of the office's Discovery, Litigation, and Compliance Unit, where she's led off efforts to improve a variety of systems so that the office is able to fulfill its discovery obligations. And she's also recently been appointed as co-chair of the AI Committee of the New York District Attorneys Association. For her extraordinary work using technology to facilitate successful investigations and prosecutions, it's my honor to present a Dewey Medal to Sunmoo and Hyo.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the New York City Bar Association and the Dewey Medal Committee, and congratulations to the other recipients. It's truly an honor to be up here tonight. One benefit of being among such remarkable prosecutors and such fantastic speakers is that I can keep my speech short, because they've already expressed so much of what I feel about this career. In 2011, when I came to the Richmond County DA's office as a law school intern under Yolanda Rudick, I knew that I wanted to be a prosecutor. But it wasn't until that I started as an ADA in Richmond County that I fully appreciated what that really meant. That this truly was the best career. One that changes with the times and we roll with the punches, but the goal always remains the same. To do the right thing no matter what. A theme that we've heard over and over tonight. Over the past few years, aside from working with multiple agencies on different investigations and seeing how hard they work on those cases, I also had the chance to help the office prepare for some changes, like discovery reform, new tech features, and now generative AI. And with that peek behind the scenes, I've had an opportunity to see exactly how many people it really takes to make things run smoothly, even when we don't know that it's happening. They are the reason that we can continue to focus on just our goal of doing the right thing. And as with most things in life, it has been the people that I've been surrounded by that have made this journey so enjoyable, even during the most challenging times. So to all of the supervisors, colleagues, and friends that I've come across during my career, thank you. People like Tim Kohler, Brooke Baranowski, Mark Stepper, Adam Silberlight, Lisa Tompkins, Bernice Ordonez, and so many others. Thank you for being my guidepost for what the right thing looks like. And of course, that includes DA Michael McMahon. You get a special shout out. Thank you for sending me to Special Narcotics and trusting me to represent the Richmond County DA's office there. And I hope that I'm doing okay. And thank you to everyone at Special Narcotics. You guys make our office such a special place, and not just because our name says so, but because of the care and collaboration that I see take place every single day. And that especially rings true for the Discovery, Litigation, and Compliance Unit. You guys have twisted and turned with me and Eric Aho, my co-chief, at every single amendment, every new case law, and every process change that we threw at you just to make things easier for everyone else. And I am so proud of the work that you have done, whether it's in DLU, in PDIU, or wherever else, and the work that you'll do in the future. So thank you. To the IT and development team, thank you for welcoming me into your world and teaching me more about APIs and data feeds than I ever thought that I wanted to know. And of course, Bridget Brennan, the Special Narcotics Prosecutor. You truly make the office special, and I feel so lucky to have grown under your guidance. And I thank you for the nomination, but more importantly, I thank you for trusting me with all of the opportunities that you've given me and for your vision and leadership. As fortunate as I have been at work to be surrounded by so many amazing people, I have been even luckier at home. So to my family, whether it's giving me a different perspective to think about, going on the best adventures with me around the world, or just supporting and cheering for me through every part of life, I am the luckiest because I have you, especially you, Mom. My mother, she owns a flower store in Brooklyn, Dyker Heights, if anyone wants to go say hi to her. And growing up, I watched her work tirelessly 7 days a week, and somehow she still found time to go on all of my school trips with me because I refused to go without her, and she didn't want me to miss any experiences. But more than that, I grew up watching her form a business and becoming a florist, two things that she knew nothing about. She was figuring out a brand new country that she wasn't from in a language that she didn't know, and overcoming any obstacle that life threw at her, all while remaining the kindest and most compassionate person that I know. She is the reason that I am a prosecutor. So thank you, Mom, for keeping your eyes. Thank you for keeping your eyes on my goal, no matter how many times I told you I was moving to Korea. And to all of the ADA's colleagues and partners here, I thank you for keeping me and my family safe with the work that you do. And as you leave here today and more changes come, I hope that you'll remember the words of the other recipients and be as inspired as I am. And I hope that you'll remember the lessons that my mother taught me. You can figure it out, you can overcome any obstacle, and you can remain kind and compassionate while doing it all. Thank you.
And last, to Manhattan and Rob Ferrari. Rob Ferrari worked for 27 years in the Manhattan DA's office until his tragic and untimely death earlier this year. Rob joined the office in 1998 and was assigned to Trial Bureau 60. He was then promoted to be a criminal court supervisor, then deputy chief of Trial Bureau 40, and ultimately be chief of that bureau. As you would expect of someone in that leadership position, he was a talented investigator and a very gifted trial attorney. Some of his many successful prosecutions include the prosecution of John Hamlet, a serial sex offender, where he had to support a rape victim being cross-examined by her pro se attacker. The prosecution of Jonathan Pena Castillo for stabbing his teenage ex-girlfriend on New Year's Eve, and the 2022 prosecution of James Spain, who murdered 2 people and injured another in the courtyard of the Jefferson houses, a particularly challenging prosecution since the surviving victim had no memory of the shooting and there were no other witnesses. But Rob's true passion was mentoring younger lawyers, including, of course, the hundreds of young prosecutors who worked for him in Trial Bureau 40, as well as the many prosecutors who benefited from his teaching at the Trial Advocacy Program and homicide conferences. And like most great leaders, he led by example. The last homicide shift Rob got called out on was on Christmas Day, a shift he scheduled himself to cover so none of his lawyers would miss spending time with their families. For his remarkable career as a prosecutor, it's my privilege to award a Dewey Medal posthumously to Rob Ferrari. Rob's sister Lisa will be speaking.
Thank you so much for those kind words. Good evening, everyone. I'm one of Robert's 4 siblings, and on behalf of our entire family, we'd like to thank District Attorney Bragg and the dedicated prosecutors of the New York County District Attorney's Office, especially Nikki Blumberg and District Attorney Bragg, who made this nomination happen. Thank you so much. And thank you to the Dewey family and the Dewey Medal Committee for selecting Robert for this posthumous award. Thank you to the New York Bar Association, which I always love to be in this beautiful room, and it's such a special evening for our family. Congratulations to the other honorees tonight. As a citizen, I feel like I'm in such good hands with all of you. Wow, I was blown away, and thank you so much for your commitment and dedication. I've learned so much about Thomas Dewey in preparing for this, and how he was the fearless prosecutor who brought down mob bosses and instituted a period of no patronage and merit and independence. And I just, for those who don't know Robert would have known all of that, and I would have called him and he would have told me all of that. When we were growing up, he had a room filled with true crime novels where I'm sure there were stories of Lucky Luciano and all the other mob bosses who you mentioned, who he took down. The signs of that Robert would eventually come to this position were there for us all along. In addition to the true crime novels, Robert was devoted to New York history and New York politics and New York sports and New York crimes, and could tell us anything about Governor Dewey and anyone else who may have been convicted in New York at any time. He went to NYU for undergrad. He went to Fordham Law School. He read the New York Times and the New York Post and the Wall Street Journal every day. His knowledge of all things New York was legendary in our family. The signs were also there. He was always great at debate. He had this amazing ability to retain facts in his head, which helped him win arguments with his liberal sisters who knew they were right. He just had all the facts and we couldn't summon them like he could. And it helped him in cross-examination, where so many of his colleagues have talked about how strong he was there and how he could grab facts and retain it. And in fact, I understand one of the cases you mentioned, I think the John Hamlet one, he actually spilled an entire pitcher of water all over his notes for closing and still was able to deliver a phenomenal closing in that case. His retention ability also made him. As I understand, of course, I was never allowed to come to any of them, but he was apparently phenomenal at the amazing goodbye parties for departing employees. And as you spoke about it, Robert spent his entire career at the Manhattan DA's office, which he loved. And he served under 3 district attorneys, Robert Morgenthau, Cy Vance, and Alvin Bragg. He started in 1998 and worked there until 2025. He investigated, prosecuted, and tried murders, rapes, robberies, burglaries, assaults, and other serious crimes. He had such deep roots in New York City that he could relate to everyone he came in contact with as a prosecutor. Our parents were raised in the Bronx. Robert and his wife raised their family in the Manhattan apartment in which we grew up. Our large extended New York family is a mix of lawyers, nurses, police officers, conservative Republicans, and lefty Democrats. We have public school, private school, parochial school in our background. So we have first-generation Americans. We have people who've been here in New York for generations. We have a Pats fan and a 49ers fan. So we are a welcoming New York family. But what this meant for Robert was that he could relate to anyone who stepped up into that jury box. He could find some knowledge or connection with them to relate to them. And Robert truly loved being a prosecutor, like I've heard all of you speak about. He loved the grittiness, the characters, the legal issues, the drama, the pursuit of justice, and the humor. He loved to walk into a courtroom where he had the respect of everyone because he had earned the respect of everyone every day of his career. Like Thomas Dewey, Robert's reputation for honesty and integrity were unmatched. He also had a deep empathy for the victims of crime and his work for them. In that same case involving the spilled pitcher, we heard about how he had to tell a victim that she was going to be cross-examined by the defendant, her attacker. And I've heard talk about how Robert, which blows me away, was in tears with her and, convinced her that she could do it and that she could go into that courtroom and testify, and she did. And then he spilled the pitcher on the closing, but no, but it all worked out. Robert's service inspired so many in our family to follow in his path. Our sister Rachel, who worked at Danny and later in the Bronx DA's office. Our brother Michael worked in Kings County DA for a while. Robert's children, Kevin, who worked in Danny as a paralegal and says he's going to law school. Peter, who is currently a paralegal in the office. All of our family looked up to Robert and modeled many of us our careers after his. I used to love hearing my husband, Conan, who's a criminal defense lawyer, and Robert talk cases at holidays. They'd have us in hysterics at something a judge or a cop or a witness had said. We had a whole debate one holiday about whether it was awkward when Robert had said in summation that a witness had sat in the witness box ramrod straight, and whether that was a thing that people even said in anymore. And our family was so struck after Robert died, how every constituency in the New York criminal justice community showed up. Young ADAs who were just starting out, paralegals, veteran prosecutors, legal assistants, New York City police officers, courtroom officers, translators, judges, and criminal defense lawyers. Everyone came up to us with a story. Some told us how Robert had mentored them. Many told us how he was the best boss they'd ever had, or the best colleague they'd ever had. Others told us how smart he was, what an excellent prosecutor he was. And others spoke of his kindness and, of course, his honesty and his integrity. My legal aid criminal defense lawyers brought me to tears, as I'm doing now, telling me that even though they were across the aisle, Robert was a pleasure to try a case with, and he was always fair and reasonable with them. One of Robert's colleagues arranged for a plaque to be placed in their office, and I just wanted to read a little bit about it. from it because these are the people who worked with him and said the following. Robert was so much more than a brilliant and respected trial attorney. He was the greatest boss imaginable, a mentor, a guiding light, a true friend to all who had the privilege of working with him, and the heart and soul of Trial Bureau 40. His beautiful mind shaped generations of assistant district attorneys, and his humor and kindness made our lives better. Rob leaves an enduring void in the pursuit of justice. Judges, adversaries, and victims all recognized in him a rare blend of excellence, empathy, and effectiveness. Robert was loved beyond words and is missed every single day. Robert's calling was clearly to represent the people of the state of New York. Thank you for recognizing him with this award and recognizing that Robert fulfilled that mission with integrity and honesty and without fear or favor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. In closing, I want to thank you all for attending. Again, congratulate all of our medal winners and invite everyone to join us across the hall for refreshments. That concludes our program, and happy holidays to you all.